Welcome back. We are going to talk about changing values, continue on that path that we were discussing last class period. So we talked about how families have changed, the role of families have changed, and we talked a little bit about how women and minorities can suffer from that sticky floor syndrome or that glass ceiling scenario where it's hard for them to break through, even though they may be perfectly qualified for a job. And it's kind of one of those things where life's not fair, and we certainly hope that continues to get better as we go on in the business world. Some other things that have changed: competition is huge. Okay, we're very fast-paced in the business world, especially in the United States. We'll talk a little bit about how the United States and other countries might vary in that. In the United States, we kind of think about, work, 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 work all the time. If we're not working, someone else is going to beat us. Someone else is going to do better than us. And, we want to be the best. We want to be the top. And I think that's great. But sometimes it does get to a point where you can put in more and more hours, but not get as much productivity out of it. And you can suffer from, fatigue or just kind of driving yourself crazy. So it's good and it's bad. I think that some of the other countries around the world work less hours, and sometimes they can be more productive in that time. So that would be definitely a benefit to them. But this can make things more stressful in the workplace for the workers and the employer. So that's a value that's changed. We, as the employee, might find that our bosses are more demanding, but our bosses may have more pressure on them, and that's why they may be more demanding. For people we know now, common trend is that a lot of households, both the mom and dad work. So we have dual career couples. And then if you add children into the mix, we see the quality of life kind of not necessarily drop, but it's just harder to give the quality time to maybe your kids or your spouse if you are constantly busy at work, and then as soon as you get home, you've got a bunch of things you got to do, and then you go to bed and you kind of do it all over again the next day. So we want to try to avoid this and make sure we don't suffer from being so busy. Job insecurity is something, basically it means that we're worried we're worried about losing a job, and so we'll do everything we can to keep a job. What this does sometimes is, it definitely brings fear to people, which nobody wants to live in fear. People start to take less vacations or time off. They kind of work themselves to the bone in order to meet their job requirements, which, of course, you want to keep your job, but you also don't want your life to suffer because of it. And we see at some jobs, the relationship between the employer and the employee suffer because of this. The baby boomer generation would be in this category, and I've discussed this before, but they're very loyal to their bosses. And typically, even if they didn't love their job, they would stay at that job for a very long period of time out of loyalty. Generation X and Generation Y, we're kind of trying to figure out things a little bit differently, and we're basically saying that, we have certain requirements or else we will go and find a new job. So much less loyal. Not loyal in the fact that we don't care about our employers. It's just we care more about us being happy. So we see and expect to probably change our careers many times in our lives. In this stat here, it says women account for only about 40% of managers out there. Full-time female managers earn 81 cents for every dollar earned by male manager. So we're seeing that glass ceiling scenario. And managerial mothers earn 79 cents for every dollar than a managerial father. So someone who has a kid, women are earning even less than men, which, again, makes no sense. The other thing that makes this even more confusing is that women are graduating from colleges more than men are. So they're getting more associate's degrees, they're getting more bachelor's degrees. I guess maybe one benefit from this is that we're starting to see women just branch off and own and run their own businesses. Basically, what's happening is they're saying, you know what, enough's enough. I'm putting in all this time. I'm moving up the ladder. I'm definitely qualified, and I'm not earning the same amount as my male counterparts, or I'm not getting promoted like they are. I'm just going to go out and run a business myself. And that trend has happened, so we're seeing more small businesses being started by women. Another changing value is people are going out to eat more. Okay, now in today's world, in the short term, that's obviously changing. But before any of this outbreak took place, there's a new trend that single people or couples without kids are spending more money going out to eat than they are on buying groceries. Okay, I enjoy going out to eat as much as anyone else. I would do it more if I could afford to, probably. But if you think about it, it's from a financial standpoint, it's really not the wisest thing you can do to go out to eat all the time. And then also, of course, you add the health factors into that. Another change in value is um, violence seems to be happening more in the United States and around the world. And this often is sparked by younger people, which is a concern. And I think you could also argue, statistics are hard to follow sometimes. There's a lot of coverage of violence now, and some people might say the violence hasn't increased, the coverage of it has. And I think there could be some truth to kind of both of those things. But regardless, that's a value that we want to change. It's something that we want to have a drastic change and be lowered significantly. The final thing here is in the United States, we are what we call lawsuit happy, which means people kind of have this value now of I want to get rich quick. So if anyone messes up, if they do something to harm me, I'm going to do everything I can to just take money from them because I've earned that. And that's a value that previous generations didn't have nearly as strong as we do. All right, here's the final slide. Um, Another value is that because this lawsuit happy environment takes place, employers definitely have to be more careful to make sure that their workplace is safe, that they've trained their employees. Basically, what happens is people have to be less trusting of their employees and basically say, we're going to train you on this, not because we think you need to know it, but because we need to cover our own backside and make sure that you can't sue us because we talked about it and we trained you on it. And you have people in the crowd being trained that would never sue for that purpose because they know it's not right. They know that if they make a mistake in that area, they knew better, but that training has to take place in order to protect the employer from litigation.